Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Bryce Simon is with me. We're going to break down all of the new faces in new places post-trade deadline. Luka Doncic in LA, Jimmy Butler in Golden State, De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio, plenty of others, and talk about how they're performing in their new environments and what our early takeaways are from those players. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Out here in Western Kansas, in a matter of a handful of days, we went from negative 20 wind chill to roughly 60 degrees outside right now. So I don't know if winter's over. I don't know if winter's taking a break. I have no idea what's going on, but the sun is shining and it was very nice being outside, watching the kids run around on the street. Very nice weather all of a sudden.
You live in a strange place, Bryce.
I mean,
listen, a very, very strange place.
Last week, we had 2 days off from school and a late start because of snow and cold temperatures. And today, my kids are running around in shorts and a t-shirt. Like, not because they're going to get sick, but because that's what the weather dictates.
Yeah, that's insane. That's a wild life that you're leading. And oh, by the way, like, look, I live in Melbourne. I can't really say anything. Like, they literally call Melbourne the city where there are 4 seasons in a day, where it'll get super hot and super cold, you know, willy-nilly like crazy. So yeah, just out of this world nuts. Let's start with a fun little story though. Shout out to my Australian brethren here, Taran Armstrong. The Golden State Warriors are signing Taran Armstrong to a 2-way contract. Taran Armstrong played with Cairns Taipans. My God, I went full American there.
I'm pretty sure that's how I would have said it if you would have asked me to say it. What is going on here? I'm wearing off on you in a very negative way. This isn't good, Sam.
It's early, Bryce. The Cairns Taipans. Taran Armstrong this year averaged 17 points per game, shooting 46, 35, 70, 4.6 rebounds, 4.7 assists per game, reduced the turnover number down to like 2.6 per game as well. Was just really good. Like, just a really, really solid basketball player this year. And I really think that this is a well-deserved 2-way. I think that he's earned this opportunity. He was a guy that was draft eligible last year. Didn't have a great pre-draft year. His first year in Australia, started at Cal Baptist. I loved his freshman year. He was like the best freshman in that league, which I believe was the WAC that year that he was in it. I don't even remember where Cal Baptist is now, but really, really awesome feel for the game. Incredible, like, passer, playmaker out of ball screens. But the issue, you know, really in the 3 years leading up to this year was that he had no way to keep defenses honest as a scorer. He now has a way to keep defenses honest as a scorer. He has a bit of a pull-up jump shot now that makes him capable, at least, of keeping defenses honest in that way. Big guard, 6'5", and seriously, like, if you go see some of the Santa Cruz games that I'm sure he'll be playing in the rest of the year, like, you're going to see an awesome dynamic ball screen passer who, you know, reads the second and third level of the defense in a truly fantastic elite way.
We've talked about these guys before, right? Like, bringing in a guy that just can run your G League team and the value of having that type of player if you're trying to develop certain play finishers, whether it's a big, whether it's a wing, whatever, and having a guy like Taran that can come in and do that. It's funny you bring up the scoring in the mid-range. I was revisiting my notes when this came up on him, and I had one where insane dribble move to leave the defender in the dust, rises up for what should be a wide open 12-foot mid-range jumper, but he decides he wants to pass and he turned it over. Now, that was from a couple years ago. That's notes from his first year in the NBL. And so it shows, okay, this was a flaw at one point, and now it's something he's improved on. But can really, really pass the ball, can really map out the court and figure those things out. He can operate a ball screen. He has eye manipulation, all of that stuff, jails defenders, all of the nuance in the ball screen. And as you mentioned, a bigger guard. And I also, like, again, going through my notes, I was like, oh, okay, nice off-ball cuts and some stuff like that. So if he does end up having to play with the Golden State Warriors, maybe just this off ball, his off ball cutting and moving and processing can play, and a good rebounder for a guard as well. I know people, wherever your value lands on that is something that he does well for a guard also.
Yeah, totally agree. Completely agree with you. He's a really smart basketball player. That's like the easiest way to define Taran. I talked to Taran when he was like 19 years old in his first year at Cal Baptist, and I think he's like one of the smartest guards I've ever talked to at that age. Like I haven't like kept up with Taran like in terms of like, communicating with him personally, but like I'd assume that hasn't gone away. You know what I mean? He is a really, really highly intelligent human being who is seeing things on the court a little bit before others see them. Really impressive player, really impressive dude. And I'm excited that he's going to get a shot in Golden State because I think the scheme is probably right for him. Even though they don't run like crazy ball screens necessarily, the way that they utilize their players on the court, I think he can be effective within that scheme.
That was my only thing, was a scheme that's not super heavy ball screen. Is he able to figure out ways to break down the defense, whether in isolation or with movement or cutting or whatever? He just seems like a processor and a guy that can figure that stuff out, even though I do think ball screen nuance and usage is a strength of his game.
So this takes us into what the meat of this episode is going to be.
Yeah.
Because we talk about guys who fit with Golden State, right? And I feel like there was like a weird split among people when Jimmy Butler got traded to the Golden State Warriors. Some people looked at the concern of what Jimmy's lack of shooting could bring to that scheme. Whereas I think you and I, when we talked about it, we were really excited about this deal for Golden State because we liked the idea of, oh no, it doesn't really matter that Jimmy can't shoot. He's a guy that you have to be cognizant of all the time because he is so smart and so good with his body and so good with his off-ball movement that he's going to fit perfectly within that scheme. I think that he might be able to get 15 points a game with the Warriors just by like sealing guys high away from the rim and like using his body and using the way that defenses play him in order to score that way. And like getting like little offensive rebound putbacks, getting garbage like cuts and like little garbage baskets around the rim. That's always what's made Jimmy such an effective player. It's not that he's this insane shot creator. He is like, or was, let's say, like back in the prime when he was with the Miami Heat and when he was with Philly and when he's with Minnesota for that year and like later on in his time in Chicago, right? Yes, he was a great shot creator. But to me, it was always, he's like the best guy in the NBA at being like a garbage scorer in some ways and like getting into the dirty spots of the court and being willing to like fight and scratch and claw for buckets that way. And that's what the Warriors needed. Like they needed somebody who could be a secondary playmaker, which Jimmy can absolutely be that. He can be a secondary ball handler, let Steph play off the ball more often. But when he is forced to play off the ball because Steph has the ball in his hands, he's really smart and sharp at being utilized in that way too. So the Jimmy deal is one that I always really liked for the Warriors. And early on, I think that's kind of what we're seeing for Golden State. I think Steve Kerr just had like an immediate game plan on how to utilize him.
So I wasn't down on the move. I was a little bit more in the middle of, is this going to work or not? And I want to build off one thing with what you're talking about. And then I do want to get into like specific actions that I watched them run in their game versus the Bucks that I found really interesting and where this all really started to make sense. Do you know what the Golden State Warriors are on the season in free throw rates?
I would guess quite low.
bottom 5, Sam. They are bottom 5 in free throw rate. If you just want straight free throw attempts, they were 24th. In the 5 games with Jimmy Butler, you want to guess where they rank in free throw attempts? You're muted.
I would say like top 10.
Top 10. They are 9th.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler is averaging almost 9.5 free throw attempts per game.
Yeah.
This is something this team did not do well. Steph Curry, less than 4 attempts. They traded Andrew Wiggins in that trade. He was second on the team before Jimmy Butler at 4.2. Their best free throw attempt guy is Jonathan Kuminga. And we've talked about, like, what is his role? Where does he fit in? He's only played 32 games this year as well. Jimmy Butler helps in an area that is a very efficient shot attempt in the National Basketball Association, which is getting to the free throw line. But what I thought was awesome, Sam, watch this game against the Bucks. First action of the game, guess what they do? Put the ball in Jimmy Butler's hands, run Curry off ball action, and it works. First action of the second half, now they switch it up. They put the ball in Draymond's hands, and they run Curry off the ball action. But guess who sets the screens for Steph Curry? Jimmy Butler. And that puts the defense in a really tough spot when Jimmy Butler is the guy setting a screen for Steph Curry. So that stuff is really, really interesting because he can cut off the ball and he can attack closeouts, but they can also use him to initiate offense when they want to let Steph do all of his stuff, running off screens and those type of things. It really is a better offensive fit than what I think I even envisioned.
Yeah. And like, we talked about this like immediately when it happened. Like the Warriors love to run their like split actions, right? Where, you're going to have somebody in the post. They typically have that be Draymond where he's on the block and he's either making a decision to hit the cutter going toward the middle of the basket, coming down the lane, stampeding, or hitting the back screened player, coming around for the 3-pointer, onto the same side as the post player. And what Jimmy does is he gives you so much flexibility in how you get to those options and avenues as a player. You can have Jimmy be the post player. You can have Draymond be the post player there who takes that entry pass. You can have either of them be the passer hitting that cutter because they're both excellent passers. You can have either of them being the screener, going into the cut to get Steph free and then stampede to the rim after they cut. Like there are just a lot of different ways that you can utilize this. I think that ultimately what this did and what this move did and why I was so excited about it is that it makes them a much more flexible, difficult offense for teams to predict more than anything. Before, if Steph didn't have the ball and if Steph wasn't like primarily initiating what was happening, it was very difficult for the Golden State Warriors to get anything efficiently. And part of this is, by the way, too, we mentioned this on, what was it, last week's show, that like Brandon Podziemski has started to come around.
Yeah.
He was starting to come around before Jimmy got there. I think that is worth noting. He sat out those games after his abdominal injury, and I think that kind of reset some things for him. Maybe he got healthier after this, but he had started to come around a little bit before that. But Pods is starting to look more like the player that we saw last season, as opposed to the guy we saw in the first half of this season, where he looked quite poor early in the season. We can just be honest about that. Yep. But being that now third option, let's say, being sometimes even the fourth option, where he can just take advantage of opportunities that are created for him, that makes his life easier, and he's now having an easier time playing within these lineups. I love their starting lineup construction right now. It's so fun. It's so smart. They have Moses Moody, who's just happy to be like a fifth option out there, knock down shots. Oh, by the way, they signed him for like a $13 million per year deal at the extension window this past year. That deal, I think, to me looks really, really sharp right now because he is a perfect fit within what this is now. Podziemski, I think, is like a perfect fit as like your third ball handler out there who is taking advantage of the advantages that are created for him by Steph, by Draymond being able to make passing reads, by Jimmy Butler being out there as like the real secondary creator. at the end of the day, they got Jimmy Butler basically for Andrew Wiggins and a first round pick. They basically got like, I don't know if Jimmy's a top 12 player anymore. I would probably argue that he's not at the end of the day, but they definitely got a top 30 player in the league. They definitely got like a top, I don't know, like top 25-ish player in the league, let's call it, for Andrew Wiggins and a first round pick. Like the price was just not high enough to worry about taking this risk, I think, whenever I really loved the fit within the offense ahead of time. And he fits the exact flaw that they desperately needed to fill, which was going to get a secondary creator for Stephen Curry.
Yeah, Moody over his last 8 games where he has consistently, there was one game he was inactive here, but these are 8 straight games with 23 or more minutes, 14 points on 47, 38 with 6 attempts from 3 in these games, 71. Like I am glad to see him consistently in the rotation, getting those minutes. I think the other thing this gives them that they haven't really had, right, is they can play through somebody that makes sense when Steph Curry's not on the floor. With all due respect to the greatness of Klay Thompson, he's just not that type of player anymore. Even as an off the ball player, like he just doesn't. I know he can get on heaters. I know those things, but Jimmy, if you're trying to run the offense through a player, is a better option for that. Now it's a little bit different, right? Like it's a little bit ISO. Let's throw it into like these post ups and some of that stuff. But it is impactful when the game slows down in the playoffs, when Steph is off the floor, you have a go-to guy. So it's not just the second guy on the floor with Steph and these creative things you can do to pressure the defense. It's in the 18 non-minutes, the 15 non-Steph minutes in the playoffs where you can stagger those. So Jimmy's on the floor and you feel like you can win or at least play even in those minutes now because you have a real offensive initiator, whether it's simply him getting to the free throw line, knocks down a couple mid-range jumpers, whatever it is. That's an option they didn't have because the option was Kuminga. And no matter what we want to talk about, like that's a bigger conversation. It didn't seem like they trusted him to do that. And I think everybody would agree.
And I wouldn't either.
Yeah,
for what
I mean, and for what it's worth, like Jimmy, there's no argument that Jimmy Butler right now is the better option to do that, right? Like we can have the long-term Kuminga conversation in the offseason some other time.
Well, no, I actually want to have the Kuminga conversation right now.
I mean, I did put in my notes, I said, where does this leave Kuminga though? Like, where is his role on this team now, Sam?
Well, I think the role is very obvious, and I'm interested to see how interested and happy he will be with this, I think is my question, because he is obviously in a contract year, but Kuminga's obviously missed like a month or so now with this ankle injury, right? I guess almost 2 months now. Jeez.
His last game was January 5th was his last. Well, he played on January 4th was his last game.
So the very obvious answer here is to bring him off the bench.
100%. Yeah.
Be like your bench, playmaker, play him with, Jimmy, Buddy Hield, and Kuminga is like the idea. And then when Draymond comes off the court, potentially you can put him in and play him with Jimmy and Steph at times, right? Like that. There are ways that you can stagger this, but I don't think that you start him and I don't think you close with him with both Jimmy and Draymond on the court. And I think that could be frustrating for him. I mean, he's averaging 17 points a game. I think that, he's obviously, again, in a contract year. So I would understand any degree of annoyance that he has with that. And it seems like the Warriors are committed to him. And I hope that he is willing to get that. But also, I don't know if the long-term fit for Kuminga is now in Golden State necessarily with the Jimmy addition. And they do need to kind of figure that out with some trial and error this summer or this spring. But at the same token, if you think it's not going to work in the way that I think it probably won't work, it's hard for them because they're behind the 8 ball in terms of the standings. They need to win as many games as possible to try and get into the playoffs. It's hard. They're in like a weird position with Kuminga that they have to kind of work through. And the answer to me is just bring him off the bench and play. I just hope that, I hope he's good with that. And like, it's not going to be a problem with him.
I agree, bring him off the bench. I guess my bigger thing was I don't even love him and Jimmy on the floor together, like as your second unit. You're like, I feel like they could contrast in what they want to do, or maybe not. Maybe it's too much similar, and in that way, I don't think it's going to have a lot of chemistry. Maybe that's the better word I should use. Is I think that's how it's not going to work well. I'm interested to see. Maybe in those minutes it is less kind of the warrior-y ball movement off me, whatever, and it's a little more half-court isolation and a little bit of your turn, my turn between Jimmy and Kuminga. I don't know. I like Jonathan Kuminga, but I admit that like his style is very unique, and I don't know that it fits Golden State's style, and I don't know that it fits playing on the floor with Jimmy, where when you're staggering Jimmy and Steph, you kind of want to run your offense through Jimmy. So it will be interesting how they acclimate that and put it all together. And to your point with the standings, they're ninth right now. They're 2.5 out of 6, which is the Clippers. They're 2 up on the Suns, which is 11th. So
for what it's worth, they are about to gain like a half game.
They're about to win, right? Over the
because
Mavs.
they're up like 30 on the Mavs. Like they're just kicking the shit out of them.
So
they're actually going to like come close to tying the Mavs here. I think they'll get within half of the game.
Yes, that is. Yep, half of a game of the Mavs for 8th. They would still be what one game
behind
back
the
Wolves. And if you look at their last 5 games, so that is before the game on Sunday, those are the games Jimmy has played. They're 5th in the NBA in net rating. And if they're kicking the crap out of the Mavs right now, that net rating is only going to go up. So
yeah,
they're going to be 5-1, a net rating probably around 15. So far, the returns look pretty solid for that move.
So my 2 questions here. 1 or 2 points really. One is a question, one is a point. 1, they have among Western Conference teams the second easiest schedule remaining. It's them in Minnesota. The Warriors have a game against the Pelicans, 2 against the Hornets, a game against the Raptors, a game against the Sixers, a game against the Nets, and 2 against Portland, although that Portland game obviously looks like it could be somewhat more difficult than what people think. Minnesota has 5 against New Orleans and Utah, 2 against the Sixers, 1 against the Hornets, 2 against Brooklyn left.
Oh, wow.
So Minnesota's schedule eases up. I think that like Minnesota, it's really just going to depend on like how the Warriors play versus Minnesota, right? I think I would probably take the Warriors over Minnesota, but they're close enough in terms of schedule where I feel okay about it.
Yeah, and that's just to get to 7.
Yeah, Houston also has the 3rd easiest schedule among Western Conference teams remaining. The Clippers have a fairly difficult schedule. The Lakers have like a crazy schedule. Like they have 2 against OKC, 1 against Boston, 1 against Memphis, 2 against Denver, 1 against the Knicks, 2 against Houston. So like, I think the Lakers look great. We're going to talk about them in a second too, but that could be interesting. Phoenix, by the way, for things I know Phoenix fans don't need to, have more shit piled on this situation, but Phoenix has the most difficult schedule remaining in the league right now.
Of course they do.
Because of course they do. But the Clippers also have like quite a difficult schedule. I think if you made me guess right now, I think the Warriors end up in the 6.
Interesting. Okay.
And here's what I would also say. If they are able to make the playoffs and don't have to go through this play-in gauntlet or anything like that, and if they're able to avoid the 8, realistically, because that's the spot you want to avoid. I think that when we did like post-trade deadline contender rankings, I had the Warriors way too low. I had them like in that like 9 to 13 bucket. They're way better than this. I might have them 3rd in the West right now.
Between OKC and the Nuggets or OKC and the Lakers?
OKC and the Nuggets. And I would have the Lakers and the Warriors. Like 3-4. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, the rest to see how it looks. I'm a little curious about their big man position and how that's going to look. But this looks right now, the early returns are exactly what you would want to see. And this is exactly what we talked about. Again, they did not win as many games as I thought they were going to with their like 12-man depth. This is all, they're just going to have the depth to win regular season games. And because of that, I think 6 is probably about as high as they're going to get. They're 5.5 back of the Rockets, who I know have been struggling recently. That would still be a lot to get there. But yeah, I mean, if they can stay out of the 8s, they're interesting to make a run after that. So I think, yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. I think I would have OKC, Denver. I know we're about to talk about the Lakers. By the way, I love the Clippers. I don't know why. I can't not love them. I love that team for some reason.
No, I do too. They're a really like tough, fun
Like
team.
even Ben Simmons and Bogdanovich in the second unit were just like making me smile the other day. Like they already had this like weird chemistry that I was like, this is awesome. But yeah, Golden State looks like a really, really good team. I think an X factor is what we talked about earlier, though. What does Jonathan Kuminga bring them? Like, does he come in and find his little role, and does it fit well? Does it not? And if it doesn't, then what do they do with that? So I think there's a little bit of an X factor with him.
Yeah. I think that like my next tier of contender ranking, I'd have like OKC above everybody else because of course, like they have to be above everybody else. And this is purely in the West. We'll talk about the East maybe at a later date, but purely in the West, I think it's like the Nuggets, Warriors, and Lakers in a tier for me. That's where I'm at. Like I think that those 3 look like the best of the group right now.
Sure. Yeah.
So, okay. Before we get anywhere else, we got to shout out our good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. We love PrizePicks here at Game Theory because of how easy they make it to get real money sports action. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Think Steph Curry's going to get more than 5 3-pointers in a game next week? We just talked about the fact that they look way, way better with Jimmy Butler. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for its players. Download the app today and use the code GAMETHEORY to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use the code GAMETHEORY to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, Bryce. Next up, let's talk about the Lakers now.
Okay.
What the Lakers did to the Nuggets last night was ridiculous. They were freaking awesome. I will say, this is a team that like lost to Chicago, lost to the Hornets. So like, let's caveat this very quickly, right? Let's just be completely upfront. Like, this is a team that has shown a couple of concerning losses. I don't really care. I think that's the easiest way for me to put it. I don't care because you can already see how this team is starting to mold around Luka. And I think it took them a couple of games to do that, largely because Luka was coming back from injury early throughout this. Like, he had sat out since Christmas and then gets thrown into the fire in like a totally new situation. And he's a very on-ball player. They had to figure out how to completely adjust their scheme. Here's the thing. they have two like basketball savants next to him in LeBron James and Austin Reeves. Those two guys are going to make it work around whoever. Like they're going to be fine. They're going to make it work no matter what like they need to fill role wise. You could already see some of the transition synergy between Luka and LeBron already. Like people have like asked
even in the shitty games, they were doing that. Look, here's what I'll say real quick. I watched 2 of the 3 bad games, and Luka was just trying to be like a good teammate and act like you knew something was going to happen eventually. I don't know, whatever. I haven't actually watched the game from last night yet. I haven't got the chance. As I told you, my kids had basketball games, and but you just knew that what they were doing, like in that Hornets game, in that Jazz game, that wasn't going to be how they were going to play. And it sounds like last night they finally kind of weaponized, we're going to attack the mismatches, and we have 3 different dudes that can do it. And Luka decided, hey, I'm going to play. He was playing so much off the ball in those first 3 games. It's like, it was making me mad, and I don't even care. And so, but yes, the LeBron Luka outlet passes are going to drive teams crazy because they can do it either way. Like LeBron will throw it to Luka, and Luka will throw it to LeBron.
It's going to be ridiculous. Like I've had a couple people ask me, but like, don't you think they're just going to get like bowled over on the inside and teams are going to be able to like out physical them? I'm not sure that people recognize like how big they are across the perimeter though. Like Luka's fucking enormous. He's like 6'8", like 240 pounds when he's in shape, let's say. Like, who knows what he's at right now. It's not unfair to say. LeBron is 6'8", 6'9", 270 pounds. Austin Reeves is like 6'5" to 6'6". Dorian Finney-Smith is like what, 6'7", 220 pounds, something like that. Rui Hachimura is like 6'8", 6'9", 235 pounds or whatever he is. He's super fucking strong. They're just like, they're 5 main like perimeter, 1 through 4 guys. They're all fucking huge. They're all big. Like Gabe Vincent's the only guy that's going to come in and be small. Like Dalton Connect, you can say he doesn't play all that big, but like he's still 6'5", like 200 pounds, and is like a real athlete. They're enormous in terms of how they match up with teams kind of across the perimeter. Yes, they don't have a great interior presence. Like they're trying to make Jackson Hayes work. I will say like their defense with Jackson Hayes has been interesting because he's at least athletic enough to allow them to be like as hyper aggressive as it feels like they want to be. But like he's not like a fantastic option at center. I think he like is working toward proving that he can be a backup center, but he's overtaxed as a starter. Alex Len, like it hasn't quite worked yet with Len at this point. They're going to be at their best playing small at the end of the day. But they're so big across the like 1 through 4 positions that I don't know how small they like actually are in comparison to other teams across the perimeter, basically.
My biggest worry for them defensively, and the funny thing is their defensive rating over that 4-game stretch isn't the issue. They're 7th in defensive rating.
They're quite good on defense right now. Like that's a thing that a lot of people have not picked up on yet. Like over their last 15 or so games, they've kind of figured out the defense. Like they're probably a top 5 defense over those last 15.
And what it is they're just going to have to be elite with off-ball rotations and schemes and stuff like so whoever's designing the scouting reports and the schemes for that Lakers staff, I think is going to be one of the most important people on that staff. Because I think that's where it comes down to, because Luka's not locking you up at the point of attack. LeBron's not locking you up at the point of attack, game in and game out. I love Austin Reeves, but I was talking to somebody today, putting him on the LaMelo Balls and the Jamal Murrays and the SGAs and et cetera of the world isn't really what you ideally want Austin Reeves doing. If he's on your second best perimeter player, that's a little different. Austin Reeves is going to compete, but that's not necessarily the role you want, and it's the role he's going to have to play for this team. Dorian Finney-Smith, really good with certain matchups. But if they have great energy and great rotations and a really nice and smart scheme, you can make up for those things. And it seems like, yes, in the larger sample, they have done that, but also in the very small Luka sample, they have also done that. And that is impressive for them as a unit, as well as I do want to give credit to the coaching staff. And I don't know who to name specifically because I don't know who the quote unquote defensive coordinator is or whatever, but whoever that is. And it sounds like this Nuggets game was really impressive with how they moved and swarmed and the energy level. And so they obviously have that potential to do those things.
So I think if I'm worried about one like team type in the playoffs, it's a team that like really spaces you out and shoots it. I would say like even like Charlotte and Chicago, the 2 games that they've lost, right? That's actually kind of what those teams do. Like they really do try and space you out and shoot it in a real way. I think that that's like what I would be a little bit more concerned about than Denver, particularly because Denver just doesn't take threes. So like they can just kind of be big across the perimeter and, big across all their positional matchups except for Jokic.
Is Memphis a team that makes you nervous for them? Would that be a team?
I just don't know. I'm not saying Memphis is like a bad team in the playoffs. I just don't know what Memphis is going to be in the playoffs because A, I would like to see Ja play like a nice run of games here health wise. And B, I just don't know what that scheme is going to look like in the playoffs yet. Like I've even like gone back and watched like some Paris games because, Tomas Isalo like has played a role in bringing this offense here to Memphis and he's their lead assistant. And like, Paris was awesome in the playoffs last year. Like they looked great, but it's just different in terms of what it is, in terms of that scheme. And like, is the way that they just like functionally continue to rotate around the court in space going to be enough for them to continue to get premium looks in the playoffs against higher level defenders consistently, right? Like they struggled against Orlando with that, honestly. So I just don't know what to do with Memphis yet. But honestly, like the team they've lost to obviously is Denver recently. And I don't know, like, I think that this matchup is just very different now than it was previously with the Nuggets. Like, I'm not saying that the Nuggets don't win this matchup. They still have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, but it now doesn't function in the same way it did prior, where you knew that Jokic was just going to sun Anthony Davis and just like clown him. And then like it was going to be completely reliant upon like LeBron beating 4 dudes across the perimeter, basically. It just like artificially and like entirely changes the way that those 2 teams match up in a way that like I might take the Lakers in that series now. I think it's like a real question mark to me.
Yeah. So like just looking at teams like Golden State's a team that shoots a ton of threes, Minnesota, OKC. Right now, LA would match up with Houston in the first round of the playoffs. What did you say there? You said their strength of schedule was really tough moving forward down the stretch.
Yeah. And I would take the Lakers in a matchup against Houston.
I was just wondering if they can move up. They're 2 back of the Nuggets, only 2.5 back of the Grizzlies, actually. But if that strength, like, there's starting to be a little bit of, like, it looks like maybe Houston could be the 4-5 right there. And I'm with you. It seems like that would be a solid a matchup for them.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's more separation between the Lakers and Nuggets at 3 and then Houston and LA at 5 and 6, right? Then there is kind of anywhere else across the board, realistically. But
other than OKC.
Yeah, we still have 25 games left. Like there's not, it's not like we're at a place where it's far off.
Sure.
Right. So, and by the way, I don't know if you've picked up on this yet, given how close we are. I think that next Sunday is like 3/4 awards for us. Right?
I wondered if it was coming soon.
Yeah, I think it's like 3/4 awards is next Sunday. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do this weekend or on Thursday this week. But yeah, that's a real thing. But the Lakers look like a real team to me. Like their defense looks great. I think that I think shifting Luka on the ball is the right call. I like the idea of LeBron playing off of that as like an off-ball player. And then Reeves will just fit whatever you need him to. Like,
Yeah.
I know that people had that question of, oh my God, like, is it too much ball? Austin's going to be fine. Like he works in whatever way you want him to. He's just a really smart basketball player. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. This is an awesome team. And if they had a real center, I still think not doing the Mark Williams deal was the right call at the end of the day, because you're building for the long term here with Luka as well. And that wasn't my favorite option. But if they had gone out and done like a backup deal for like a real center, this would be like a real contender to me.
Yeah. Dorian Finney-Smith shooting just under 40% from three, like doing exactly what we expected him to do for that team. Vanderbilt is back. I'm interested to watch the Dalton Connect minutes as we get to the end of the season into the playoffs. He is a rookie. We've talked about the defense. I think he played I don't think it was single digit minutes last night, but it wasn't a ton of minutes last night. So as they get into the stretch run and into the playoffs, I'm just kind of interested where the rotation goes if he eventually gets squeezed out of it because of that. And I mean, like, Rui, not always my favorite player, but he's shooting almost 42% from three right now. And if he's knocking down catch and shoots, that's huge for them.
Yeah, if we're just like at the point where Rui is able to hit 40 to 45% on catch and shoot threes, then like he's definitely a rotation player, and that's all they need him to be. Like he is big and useful and rebounds, and if he's hitting open threes, and by the way, like he's going to get fed open threes now because of LeBron, Austin, and Luka being out there. Yeah, I mean, real shot. This team has like a real shot now.
Yeah, I would feel better if I knew what the center position was going to be. I know you talked about like maybe just going small. I'm not sure. I'm interested to see how that'll hold up. But yes, the West is very interesting. Even with OKC and how much I believe in them, we haven't seen it fully in the playoffs yet. This would be their first run all the way there, to where like you see some of these teams put it together. You see some teams get hot down the stretch, and you could start to make the argument for multiple teams to be like, okay, these guys are real contenders.
Yep. New sponsor today on the show. Shout out to our good friends over at NUTRAFOL. This year, there's nothing holding you back from loving your hair again. Hair is so much more than what you see on the surface. It's a reflection of what's happening inside. Let NUTRAFOL target the key root causes of your thinning hair and help you grow stronger, healthier strands from within. NUTRAFOL is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with NUTRAFOL. Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. NUTRAFOL has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you can get just what you need. Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, NUTRAFOL supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. Start your hair growth journey with NUTRAFOL. For a limited time, NUTRAFOL is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to NUTRAFOL.com and enter that promo code GameTheory. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend NUTRAFOL for healthier hair. NUTRAFOL.com, spelled NUTRAFOL.com, promo Game Theory. That's NUTRAFOL.com, promo code Game Theory. Okay, Bryce, time to talk about the Spurs. So we got just bummer news across the board last week for the Spurs, where Victor Wembanyama is now out for the year. Also, Greg Popovich is going to miss the rest of the year. We hope that he is doing okay as well in his recovery from, just obviously really, really scary situation for anybody. So the question now is, like, we talked about the fact that we think they should be tanking moving forward.
Yeah.
yes, like that's probably the right idea. I am like intrigued to see if they're going to be able to do it because like De'Aaron has been quite good so far for them. Like I've enjoyed the De'Aaron Fox experience so far for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, he's really good. I saw it the other night against the Pistons, and man, he is so fast. I know I'm not telling people anything they don't already know, but there wasn't a Piston player that could keep up with him. And I mean, we talked about how good Asar Thompson is defensively, and even he was really struggling. And when he's making 3-pointers, De'Aaron is one of the harder players in the league to defend when that 3-pointer is going down because he is so fast. He can stop on a dime. He has the little floater, all of that stuff. So he has been really good. It sucks that we're not going to get to see like that chemistry. And I think where this, assuming Wembanyama is healthy, comes back, like I think where this hurts the Spurs is they don't get 30 games here down the stretch for that chemistry to develop. It's going to have to develop at the start of next season and figure those things out. But yeah, I mean, I'm still interested to see. We got 8 days for them to do something. No, not even 8 days, 5 or 6 days to see if they do something with Chris Paul or if he still, is on this team. They had a really interesting starting lineup the other night of Fox, Paul, Vassell, Barnes, and Bismack Biyombo. Then they started Sohan in the second half over Vassell because that starting lineup has nobody that can guard you at the point of attack defensively, and they needed somebody to try to guard Cade Cunningham. So I'm just kind of interested to see, like, what is their path forward? De'Aaron Fox is really good. Are there other guys on the roster you can learn something about throughout the rest of the season, Sam? Because, I mean, are they better than the Blazers going down the stretch? Like, the Blazers have been awesome. So it's
I'm not sure.
Like they're a game and a half up on the Blazers right now. And it's like, okay, well, even if they wanted to go get into 10, I don't know that they can because you'd have to pass 2 teams and you have a team breathing down your neck. So I do think the path is what we've talked about, but then how do you get there? I mean, obviously Steph is the guy that you would like to, get a ton of minutes, but I don't know. They're in a really interesting spot. This is what sucks about these injuries, beyond just the player and that player's health and all of that is what do you do with these 25 games?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm not sure what they do with those 25, to be honest with you. I will say this though, like, I don't know if a player has come into a new situation like this cycle and basically just been like exactly the same as what he was before in the way that like De'Aaron has for the Spurs, right? Like there's just been no adjustment time. There's been no period where like he needed a minute to come in and just be like, oh yeah, like I'm a different kind of dude. Like I need this kind of action. They just gave him the ball and said, just be you. Yeah. And he's a great self-creator. He's a great, isolation scorer, can get to his floater when he wants to, can get paint touches. Like this is a team that needed somebody like that. And he's really helping them with it. Like he's coming into the year, he was averaging 25 points, 6 assists, shooting 47, 32, 83, right? Last 7 games that he's played so far for the Spurs, 23 points, 7 assists, 50, 34, 78. Like it's just been super crisp, super easy, super simple. I like it a lot. I think it makes a lot of this team is going to make so much more sense next season with De'Aaron Fox being there. And now he's going to have Wemby hopefully at the start of next season. It's a huge bummer we don't get to see it the rest of the year. I would have been fascinated to watch them in a play-in game where I think they would have been like quite dangerous in such a setting. But yeah, I am a fan. I see like people in the comments like talking about the coaching as well. Rachel's bringing up, should they trade for Will Hardy? They need to address the coaching for next year. I don't know about trading for Will Hardy, but like, I don't know that Mitch Johnson is the guy based off of what I've seen personally.
Yeah, I want to go back to something with Fox real fast also that you and Tim brought up from the very beginning. And since we probably won't talk about this again, I want to bring it up. Watching him be disruptive defensively on and off the ball and how that plays into having a 7'5" ultimate rim protector disruptor behind you. I think defensively, that's really, really fascinating. Like De'Aaron's ability to be aggressive, jump passing lanes, dig on the ball, dig off the ball, and the disruption that can cause that, and be able to do that aggressively, knowing that you'll have Wembanyama behind you next season throughout the rest of all of this. That makes him even more dangerous in that role as a defender. And I think that's going to play into his strengths on the defensive end as well. And I thought that was a great call by you and Tim. I brought it up before, but I wanted to bring it up again because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, no, I'm really intrigued to see kind of what they do this summer too. Like they just have a lot of options now, but the reason that I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on De'Aaron is it just kind of looks the same as it did in Sacramento. And that's exactly what they paid for in the trade. That's exactly what they wanted. That's what they hoped for. And that's the reality of what this situation is. So if I was them, I'd be super excited. I'd be pumped. They got what they paid for, and now they get to see what it looks like when Wemby and maybe hopefully Pop comes back next season, because this would be terrible if this is how Greg Popovich doesn't get to choose the end of his career potentially. It'd be a real disappointment, I think, for everybody involved. On the other side of the equation of this deal is Sacramento. And Sacramento has had Zach Lavine for 7 games. They're sitting here at 28-28 at this point. Where are you on the Lavine fit and how it's gone in Sacramento at this point? Because they're now sitting in 10th. Look like Phoenix in 11th. Doesn't look like they're playing great. And we just said they have the hardest schedule remaining in the league. San Antonio is without Wemby the rest of the year. Portland is 4.5 games back of Sacramento. Look, the Portland thing is exciting, and they're playing such great basketball right now. I just don't know that they can get 4.5, I guess. I don't think they can get 4.5 back on Sacramento in that
Don't
time.
doubt my guy, Tamani Kamara, Sam.
I mean, look, Bryce, I'm doing a Tumani Kamara video.
You should.
Week. It's happening.
You should.
I'm just telling people. It's absolutely happening. I am 100% doing a Tumani Kamara video this week. It is way too obvious of a player that I just have to break down and talk about. He has been so good. But to the point on schedules remaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento has the 5th toughest schedule remaining in the West. They have the Cavs twice. They have OKC once, Boston once, Memphis once, Denver twice, and the Knicks once. They have a loaded, difficult schedule left.
-6 net rating over their last 7 games that Zach Lavine has played. I watched a game against the aforementioned Portland Trailblazers. I still don't like the starting lineup because Keegan Murray has to take the toughest matchups, like Anthony Simons in that game. I don't know how you would do it. I still think Keon Ellis should be in the starting lineup. I have a worry here, and Malik Monk is one of my favorite players in the game. But maybe I overcompensated for, or undervalued, I guess, what this bigger role would do to his efficiency. Over this 7-game stretch, he's at 16 points on 40, 28, still 88 from the free throw line, 5.5 assists, but 3.3 turnovers. Now, maybe he will adjust, but I am a little bit nervous if maybe he was in the perfect role and now maybe this is too much, or maybe he's just having to adjust to taking on, a little bit of a bigger load with some of the on-ball stuff and all of that. So maybe there's just an acclimation here of that.
So, yeah. The obvious answer to me is that you take one of Zach or DeMar out of the starting lineup, because neither of them can really pass. Malik is their best passer probably, and put in Keon Ellis to at least have a real defensive based option there. Since Lavine has been there, they have a 118 offensive rating. It's not in Lavine's minutes on the court. The offense is not the problem. It is absolutely the defense. They're giving up 124 points per 100 possessions. The answer to me would be to try and bring DeMar off the bench. Do you know what DeMar is doing in the 7 games since this deal happened and like since they've been playing?
I don't.
DeMar's averaging.
Is he playing
25, 4 and 5, shooting 54, 45, 91, and he's taking like 4 threes a game.
Yeah, wow.
Like DeMar, you can't bench DeMar.
No,
you actually can't bench DeMar in that circumstance. I don't think so. But you have to find a way to get defense on the court.
yes,
but you probably can't bench Zach either because of you just acquired him for your franchise star. It probably does have to be that you bench Malik.
I say, can you not put Malik back into his 6-man role? Like,
yeah.
Again, I am the biggest Malik Monk fan. I love watching this dude play, but I also want to see Keegan. I've said this all season now. I think they're doing a discredit to Keegan Murray. I think Keegan Murray is a good defender, Sam, but I don't think he should be chasing Anthony Simons around to start games and taking those matchups all the time. And I do think it has hurt his offense in terms of it's at least stunted the growth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's regressed this year. It has. He's taking less 3-point attempts, shooting less of a percentage. Like the field goal percentage overall is down. The points are down. He's playing more minutes. So it's not like it's a minutes thing. He is rebounding the ball better. Like I'm not saying Keegan should just be like this offensive hub. What I'm saying is I think him guarding the second best player is better for him defensively and offensively. And having Keon Ellis in the starting lineup now allows him to do that. It quite honestly might put everybody back in a role that they can be more successful in, including Malik Monk potentially. So I don't know. I feel like they have to try it at a certain point.
I think that is probably the right call for them at this point. You have to get defense into that lineup. There's just like not another answer. Like you have to get defense into that starting lineup and find a way to do that. Or you have to find a way to move DeMar. And honestly, like I'm splitting DeMar and Zach this summer anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want that as my combination moving forward if I'm the Kings. But to me, they have to find a way to split that, I think, at the end of the day.
I agree. It's just they can't do it. They can't do it now, right? And
yeah,
I assume if you're Sacramento, you want to like be in the playoffs, at least they'll play in. And you got a couple teams right now that are kind of breathing down your neck outside of that. I don't know that Keon Ellis into the starting lineup, Malik Monk out, doesn't at least do that for the rest of this season. And then you, like you say, then whenever you split things and stuff, like you figure it out after that. But I just wonder if that's actually the lineup to get you to the finish line this season. And that finish line is probably not a first round series win, but it may be play in 8 seed, losing 5 to the Thunder or something like that.
That's right. The other main name that I wanted to talk about here was Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah.
In Milwaukee.
I want to talk to, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this because I have a weird thought on it, but I may be wrong. I wonder if I'm overthinking it. So
far in Milwaukee, Kyle Kuzma is averaging 16 points a game and still shooting 42% from the field, 28% from 3. The big thing that he is doing more of now is like he is like crashing the glass again and like playing the 4 and like really, attacking, right? Like he is willing to hit that area of the court, but like literally the percentages outside of the free throw percentage, which is up to 67%, are the exact same as what they were in Washington. I think that clearly he has played better than what he was in Washington.
No question.
I think he looks way more active. I think that a big thing here as well is that they needed somebody like this. And this is what we talked about when they made the deal, right? Like this is the exact position that they kind of needed. They needed like a flexible 4 can slide down to the 3 option, like a bigger wing option to be able to play next to Giannis and Brook. When Giannis is off the court, can he create a shot occasionally? Like they needed somebody like this. I still have a lot of questions on whether or not he is actually efficient enough as a player for this to like actually truly work, because they're still losing their minutes when he's on the court. Like they're still losing by 0.5 points per 100 when he's on the court right now.
So
and like this comes, by the way, in a run where he's played 6 games. Like they've won 4 of their last 5. I think they've won 4 of the 6 games, and they're still losing their minutes when he's on the court.
And they've lost those minutes overall at negative 0.5. Also, probably need to mention that he becomes even more important with a little bit of size with losing Bobby Portis for 25 games as well.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I agree with like the positional size. Here's my question, Sam. His downhill driving intensity has been really good. And I agree with the rebounding. Yeah. I think he's been on ball defensively, been better. He rotated and took a charge the other night. Like, I agree with all that. Here's my question. Is that what this team needed, though? Like, did they need a guy to get downhill and pressure the paint as his primary number 1 strength when you have Giannis, who pressures the paint ridiculous, when you have Dame that's pressuring the paint ridiculous? Or did you actually need a guy that maybe was a little bit better of a defender and was able to knock down catch and shoot threes consistently? Like, that's my thing. And I realize those guys aren't readily available. Maybe this was the best thing that the Bucks could do, and so they took it. And so while I agree that he's played better, that he's probably done exactly what you would hope in the new environment, I don't know that the way he produces for your team is actually what this team needed at its core in terms of like, the downhill stuff is awesome, but I don't know they needed more of that when you have 2 guys doing it at a high level anyway. So that's where I've struggled with it a little bit.
I don't disagree with that necessarily. I don't think you're wrong. I think that more than anything, what they needed was like the lineup flexibility kind of.
Okay.
To be able to like do different things. And he does at least allow them to do that. Like when he's engaged, like defensively, like he has been better than Middleton this year. Middleton was just like not able to guard anymore. Like it's fine. Like we can admit that. Kuzma's at least like athletic and has been more engaged and is bigger. Like he is capable of guarding in a way that is useful. I don't know that it's hard to say, like, are they better or not with Kuzma now than they were with Middleton? And I don't know, like, I keep thinking back to like their most recent game that I watched, which is that Washington game. And I don't know about you, but like I was fairly worried about the fact that like that was within like 1 possession kind of at the end, and Washington like kind of kicked the shit out of them in the first quarter. And it was like kind of a strange deal. And look, like I get it. Like Damian Lillard did not play in that game, right? But you had Giannis, you had Brook, like you had the kind of ideal of what was going on and what you were trying to do. And like, oh, by the way, like Ryan Rollins played pretty well in that game as well. Like he was like useful. He had 15 points and he has also been like really impactful defensively for them. I say all this to say that I don't know where I'm at on them yet. So I don't know. There are positives and negatives to this deal in terms of like, I don't know if Kuzma is actually like good enough as like a scorer and like is efficient enough as a scorer to fill the role that they need. I think like I would like to see him more with both Giannis and Dame maybe before like making that official statement.
So he
definitely fills needs for them, but I just don't know if he's like actually good enough at it yet.
I watched a game against the Clippers that they won, and he played with Giannis, and he did do this. So like to his credit, first possession of the game, Giannis has the ball at the elbow. Obviously, all eyes are on him because he's Giannis. He throws it to Kuzma, weak side corner, catch and shoot, 3-point make. into the first quarter, similar situation. Dame has the ball, finds Kuzma, knocks down the catch and shoot. So like if he can do it in those samples, I will tell you, when I watch the Bucks, my bigger thing is like, I've watched games where I was like, man, Brook Lopez may be on his last legs. And then that game I watched out of the All-Star break, he was incredible against the
he was
Clippers.
great in that Clippers game.
Knocking
I watched
down,
that game too.
yeah, knocking down shots, protecting the rim. I find myself going, Brook Lopez, Gary Trent Jr. I don't like AJ Green should be solidly in this rotation, in my opinion, because of his shooting. And I think like physically he holds up defensively.
Yeah.
I kind of find myself going, I think I've made this reference before. It reminds me of the Mavericks last year a little bit. Can those guys all hit threes? Can you get a hot stretch from Kuzma in the playoffs? Because I know what Giannis and Dame are going to do. I know how Giannis is going to dominate a game. I know that Dame's going to be there knocking down jumpers in the fourth quarter, all of that. Can all of these other guys, can Taurean Prince continue to shoot 40? What is he at? 40? Where's Taurean? 47% from three, right? Like, can those guys knock down shots? That's my question with the Bucks. Defensively, they don't have the matchup on the perimeter. So Giannis and Lopez are going to have to be incredible on the interior.
So that Clippers game that they won, by the way.
They did win. Yep.
Is the only game so far where Dame and Giannis and Kuzma have all played together. And Brook played in that game too, as you mentioned. Do you know what the Bucks net rating was in that game when Kuzma, Lillard, and Giannis played? Like on the court at the same time. They played 12 minutes together.
12 minutes. So probably the first part of each half would be plus 10.
They were minus 18 per 100.
Oh, so they didn't even, I thought since he knocked down shots, maybe they got off to a good start. So that wasn't even good enough.
Yeah, they lost that run by like 5 or so, 4 or 5.
Okay.
When he was on the court with them. So I don't know, man. Like, again, this is why I want to see more. Like, I'm not making like a definitive statement on it. I think that there are aspects of this deal where it is really helping to see them on the court, like to see Kuzma fill specific needs that they needed, right? But also, it is like the result wasn't great in that Clippers game when they were all on the court together. And like Kuzma, when he's played, just he's been the same guy in terms of efficiency to this point as he was in Washington. Like he just was not making shots there, and he's not making shots now. Does the fact that like he tilts their lineups bigger make him more valuable? I don't know. I want to know more. I think I want to know more.
Yep. They're interesting. And since we highlighted standings for other teams, chasing down the Knicks, probably not something that's going to happen. They're 5 games back there, but they're in a little bit of a race here with the Pacers, like at least for home court. They're a half game back of the Pacers. I mean, I guess I'll mention the Pistons are only a game and a half back of them in 6. Then there is a little bit of a gap to the play-in. I don't think they're going to fall that far. So like threes, they're going to end up 4 or 5, probably most likely 4 or 5. A chance for 6 if something crazy kind of happened, but looks like where they're going to end up is right there in that 4 or 5, which means then you get the Cavs in the semifinals if you get out of the first round.
I mean, look, you're getting the Cavs or Boston, like you're
it doesn't matter. Yeah, 6
of one, half dozen of another, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, let's go now to just kind of speed round through 2 other ones that I want to go through. DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs might have a bigger impact on the title race than any of these deals because the Cavs are really good, and DeAndre Hunter is a really good fit with them. In the 4 games that he has played, he's averaging 14 points, 2.5 rebounds. He is shooting 50, 62, 75 so far, and he's been active and aggressive and big and long defensively. He's kind of been what we hoped he would be for them. I don't know that I have like crazy thoughts necessarily on like how this looks, but like it's he's looked like a solid addition for them at the deadline. Like it looks exactly like we hoped it would look.
My only thing with Hunter was like, did the extremely hot shooting, did it stick or not? Right? Like, what was that going to look like? And the more I looked at his career numbers and stuff, the less worried I got about that. I think the question in Cleveland is, and my guy, Fear the Fro, Bob Schmidt, did a really cool YouTube video talking about this. Kind of the fifth starter appears and apparently is a big conversation amongst Cavs fans.
Yeah.
So if you go to Fear the Fro pod over on YouTube, he does like this 30-minute talking about net ratings and the different options and all that. Really good stuff. But like, to me, that's where this conversation is. Like, do they eventually start him consistently? Does it continue to be Strus? Does Dean Wade get back in? Is it him? Like, is it a Coro? Is it matchup based? Do they switch it? This is what we've talked about with Kenny Atkinson. We've talked about, and you've highlighted, man, he really has lineup versatility and options. And I've said, yeah, that's great as long as he pulls the right strings at the right times. And it's great to have those options. It will be interesting to track that in the playoffs for them in terms of, does he ever go and pull the DeAndre Hunter needs to be in the starting lineup for whatever reason, right? Or does it need to be this guy or that guy? That's my thing with the Cavs moving forward. Also, Javonte Green signed on, right? Or was that official, or was that just reported that was?
It's happening. Yeah,
it's
he's
happening.
in Cleveland now.
Yeah, so just you add a little bit more wing depth to that team. So,
yeah, look, like they've clearly been experimenting with like who he's going to play with, who he's best with, right? Like they played him, a bunch of minutes with Sam Merrill. They've played him, not a ton of minutes with Ty Jerome, which is like kind of interesting to me. I kind of thought, oh yeah, like they played together at Virginia. Like it might be an easy way to kind of integrate him, to play him with a guy that he's played with before. And that's kind of the guy he's played with least in their rotation so far. Like they played him with Mitchell and Garland a decent amount. Like they played a couple of lineups like with one or the other in the lineup, Mitchell or Garland with Hunter. They're clearly just like kind of experimenting, it feels like to me, and trying to figure out what the best fit is for him. And that's the kind of luxury that you get whenever you're 40-10 and you're obliterating everybody. And, figuring out how to integrate DeAndre Hunter into your lineup is your biggest problem right now. And it's not a problem. Like it's a good fit. It works. And now you just have to figure out, okay, he has a little bit better synergy with this guy than he does with that guy. Maybe he has better synergy with like Sam Merrill coming off the bench because he can cover up for Merrill defensively a little bit. And Merrill doesn't have to worry about things like, oh, like he really works with, there hasn't been like a group yet where he's played with in the minutes that I've seen where I've been like, oh yeah, that didn't work. You know what I mean?
I mean, here's the funny thing is like they trade Karis LeVert, who was their sixth leading scorer at the time. And it's like, nobody even cares because Ty Jerome is so freaking good. And then you don't even care about depth because Craig Porter Jr. is sitting there as well. If like Jerome misses a game or somebody gets in foul trouble or, whatever, because I think we both think Craig Porter Jr. is a pretty decent basketball player in the NBA. And so it's like the depth on that team was just silly. It was so silly, how well they've built out that depth around, we talk about the 4 stars. I'll say 4 stars. I feel like Jared Allen deserves that. But the depth that they built around them is really impressive as well, to where they could consolidate 2 guys to go get a guy they felt was an upgrade and still not have to worry about backup point guard or third point guard or anything like that.
Yeah. Looks like a great addition, and I don't know that I have anything else on it. Like he just looks like a win for them. Finally, let's talk about Quentin Grimes in Philly. And really I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and just
real quick. You need to go check Twitter.
No, I know. I have it up. I have it in the back end. Really just like the bucket of sadness that is the Philadelphia 76ers. They've won one of their last 9 games at this point. That was a win against Dallas by 2 points, where it was Kyrie, Gafford, Clay, Kessler, Edwards, Dante Exum, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie, Omax Prosper in the rotation. So like not a playoff Dallas team, basically. Then they have now lost, I believe it is like their last 6, maybe their last 7 now, honestly. Miami at Detroit, at Milwaukee, Toronto at Brooklyn, Boston, and against Brooklyn. So they've lost to Brooklyn twice. They've lost to the Raptors once. They have lost to Detroit in this run. And like Detroit's a playoff team, but like Detroit was a team they were expecting to be ahead of. Let's go with. On the Grimes side, I think that Quentin Grimes has looked pretty solid with them, in all honesty. I think he looks like a great pickup. He's averaged 16 points, shooting 47, 34, 75. He's played good defense. They've asked him occasionally to like play as more of a passer and playmaker. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good, I think.
He's a good player. Listen, all I want to know is what this man is demanding for a contract. All I want to know is why he keeps getting traded. And this goes back to when the Pistons traded him. And listen, now that ends up looking like a fine trade because Tim Hardaway Jr. has started a bunch of games for that team and it looks okay. But it's still like in a league that is always looking for what outside of stars? 3-and-D wings, right? Guys that can knock down, catch and shoot, guys that can defend, to your point, can do a little bit with their ball in their hands. Why does he keep getting traded, Sam? That's all I want to know. I want somebody to tell me why he's been on 4 teams in 2 seasons. He was on the Knicks, got traded to the Pistons, was on the Pistons in the offseason, got traded to the Mavs, and then got moved again at the deadline. Now, maybe it's just been circumstances, right? In New York, all of a sudden, like you have Deuce McBride show up and you don't feel like he needs to be in your rotation anymore. In Detroit, maybe, one GM that traded for him and then the new GM comes in, has different priorities and whatever. In Dallas, you make this crazy trade. You bring in Max Christie, who's a similar archetype. Not that you can have too many 3-and-D wings, but so then you like, maybe that's it. If his contract comes in very reasonable or below, I'm going to be very confused because I've just always equated it to he was going to ask for way too much and teams didn't want to pay what they felt like he was going to ask for.
I assume it's going to be like a little bit above the mid-level. Like I assume that we're looking at like 16 or so, like 15, 16 million.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if it comes in at 10, then I'm going to be like, what am I missing that this guy continues to get moved? Because I agree. I think he's a good player. His second year in New York, he shot 39% from 3, averaged 11 points. In Dallas, he was playing well, shooting 40% from 3, averaging 10 points. And then with Philly, it's been even better, even though as a team, it's been a disaster.
Yep. Okay. Now we have Philly seemingly making inroads toward what they should be doing. The 76ers and Joel Embiid are consulting doctors and considering alternative options on his injured knee. Sides have hoped for progress in Embiid's body, but his efforts to play and current treatments, including injections, have not provided any improvement. It's crazy to me that they're playing this dude right now. He can't move, Bryce. Like you watch him, like he is nowhere near the guy that we have seen even like as recently as last year when he was healthy. He very clearly needs a break and like needs time off. And like, you just kind of got to take the L on the season. You're 20-36. Stop playing him. Like there's no reason. We know that he's healthy. We know that he's not healthy. We've watched him play. Shut him down. Give him like 8 months here or whatever to get his body right. Figure out what the treatment options are and get him ready for next season. You're done at this. Like the season's over. It's better for you to tank than it is for you to win it right now.
And they, quite honestly, they should shut Paul George down and hope that rest and whatever can get him. Like I'm nervous, Sam. I'm nervous for that because he's not been like we have 37 games of him being fine, but nowhere near the Paul George we all know. So I don't see any reason to put 25 more games on his legs back, whatever. Find something wrong with him. He's 34 years old. You can find it. Neither of these two guys should play games the rest of the season, in my opinion.
Completely agree. Got to shut him down.
Put Yabusele back in the starting lineup. See if Grimes can do some ball handling stuff. Let Justin Edwards go out there and shoot 8 threes a game and see how it looks. Let Jared
Tyrese Maxey like stub his toe
100%. Let
on
Jared,
a corner or something.
let Jared Butler run the second unit point guard to see if there's something there. Like, figure out this other stuff with these, like Oubre, let him play, like all, like, yeah, it's done. It's over for this year. And your window, like Embiid is 30, Paul George is 34. Your window with those guys, I'm not saying it closes when they're done because you still have Maxey. Your window with those guys is 2 years, 3 years, maybe. You have to maximize 25, 26, 26, 27, 27, 28. So maximizing those years is losing as many games the rest of this season as possible. Because what is that? Top 6? Is it top 6 protected? Is that right? To the Thunder?
Yes. Top 6 protected pick. Yes.
So you can get in the top 6 and you can have Joel and PG as healthy as humanly possible starting next season when you need to take advantage of this short window that you have.
So Philadelphia, prior to this run, had the easiest schedule in the NBA remaining. This little run of games. Now they've lost all these games to Brooklyn and Toronto and these teams. And they still have 2 against Washington, 1 against the Pelicans, 1 against Utah, 2 against Toronto, 2 against Chicago. Like, they still have so many games against like bad teams. That's the thing. I feel like they just kind of have to figure it out. They got to figure out, like, okay, Joel, you're done for the year. Paul, you're done for the year. Like, let's get this done.
You know what's funny? They're only a game and a half back of the Bulls.
Oh no, we're getting to that now.
Okay. Oh, real quick. No.
The funniest thing that's happening. Go ahead.
You owe me supper at Summer League because those 3 guys are only going to play 15 games. And I don't know if we actually made a bet, but I know I brought up how many games they would play together. And in my head, we made a bet about them playing a certain number of games, and this went under. So
where did we go? Halejos or whatever. We'll do that again.
I'm not letting you buy me a meal at Alejos. We will go there. You will not pay for that because that's the most expensive meal I've ever had, but also the best.
That's insane that's the most expensive meal you've ever had, Bryce.
Sam, I live in Western Kansas. Like, where do you think I'm going to eat meals that cost what Alejos cost? Okay.
It's not that bad. Okay. The funniest thing that's happening league wide right now is the race for the play-in spot in the East. The Chicago Bulls, who have traded away like Zach Lavine and have like 7 point guards on their roster or whatever, and are in a position where they're playing younger guys. Let's go with. They are currently in 10th. The Brooklyn Nets are currently in 11th. The Brooklyn Nets, who everyone I think kind of assumes at some point is going to pull the ripcord, because I think that they probably wouldn't mind to pull the ripcord. The Toronto Raptors are currently, or the Philadelphia 76ers are in 12th. We just talked about them. They should be pulling the ripcord. The Toronto Raptors are in 13th. I'm not joking, Bryce. I think if the Raptors play Brandon Ingram the rest of the year, it seems like they're not. Like, Brandon has not played since he's been there, and he's just been kind of hanging out. If they were to play him, I think they would make the play-in.
4.5 games out. What is going on?
Like, I'm dead serious when I say that. But and Charlotte is 7 games back. Washington is 12 games back of the play-in. Like, they're not really in this picture. No. But the Bulls, Nets, 76ers, and Raptors, none of those teams want to make the play-in. One of them has to, Bryce. Like, one of them is going to have to play an extra game this year when I don't think any of them do.
It's crazy. You know what I was thinking about? I know this has been brought up before. Do you think there should be a win minimum, like, for the play-in? So we have this play-in scenario. Should there be like, okay, we like this, but you have to at least win 35 games.
It's not feasible to do it this way because it's not feasible to do it this way because of the contracts involved, like the TV deals and things like that. Like, you have to, you're going to give, ABC and ESPN,
because you're going to
NBC and Amazon, like, a certain number of games,
and you're going to, like, you could take at least one game out potentially if it didn't happen.
Totally.
You know what I would tell them? I would tell nobody's going to watch those games anyway. Like it's okay. Nobody's going to.
No, truly, like nobody is going to watch like a Hawks home game against
The Nets.
Chicago, Brooklyn, Philadelphia, or Toronto. Like it's just not going to happen at this point. The team that finishes in that spot, in that 10th spot, there are how many games left? There are
20
ballpark it at
5-ish,
25.
right?
Yeah.
26.
There's a pretty good shot that team has 32 wins, 31 wins, something like that. Right? The Bulls have 25 games left. They're 22-35. They're the team with the best record of this group. Like I don't think they're getting to 32 wins this year.
Sam, do you know who started for the Brooklyn Nets last night in a win, by the way?
I do. It was Killian Hayes and Keon Johnson.
No. You can stop. We just needed one name. We just needed one name there. Killian Hayes on a 10-day contract started for the Brooklyn Nets, and they won.
They beat the 76ers with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah. Who's the best team of those four? The Raptors?
It's still probably Philly.
No. Let's assume Philly shuts down. Like, let's assume Philly does what we're talking about.
Okay.
So Chicago, Brooklyn, Toronto. Who could, if they put their best players on the court? Philly obviously would be the answer here. If they put their best players on the floor, they're trying to win, which I guess if you get in the play-in, you might as well try to win. Like, who is the best team?
I think probably Toronto. I think that, in fact, I think it's definitely Toronto. I will just say that.
If they're healthy with IQ, Barrett, Barnes, Pirtle.
Yeah, it's definitely Toronto.
It's crazy.
It's insane that this is where we're at. That is by far the funniest tank race I've seen in so long, though. Like it is. Someone has to play in that game. None of them want to.
None of them.
Like actually, that's a lie. Chicago wants to.
Well,
according to AK, Chicago wants to. But yeah, I got nothing, man. Okay, it's time for trivia. Andrew is here in the back end, sliding up to his microphone as we speak. Andrew, what's going on, buddy?
Everything's okay. That's what I've been saying to myself as a Knicks fan who just watched them fall to 0-7 against the top three teams in the NBA with a point differential of -141 in said 7 games. But so everything's okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of multitasking tonight, so I'm sorry if I seem a little frazzled, but I'm happy to be here. My heart is always with the Game Theory podcast, so happy to be here.
I'm trying to decide if I think I would take the Warriors or Lakers over the Knicks in a playoff series right now. I think that's where we're at with the Knicks.
I don't think that's fair, but I understand why the skepticism's there.
Oh my!
You know the number the stat I just gave you. They're -141 against the Cavs, Thunder, and Boston this year. That's 7 games. Do you want to know what their point differential against the other 50 games against the other?
It's
games is?
Insane. It's probably
plus
like
414.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna guess that they're probably like a +9, but it sounds like they're even just like a +8 in those minutes.
Yeah, but they're very clearly a 4th or 5th best team in the NBA. That's just so weird that that's their ceiling. Like I've never seen a ceiling so clearly defined.
Well, to me, it's more about just the fact that there are these 3 teams. The title is going to come down to one of these 3 teams, in my opinion, in Oklahoma City, Boston, or Cleveland, and that's just kind of the reality at this point.
Yes, but what I'm getting at is, so you just said, would you take the Lakers or the Warriors? Or I guess there's like a Denver conversation. The Knicks have beaten Denver twice convincingly this year.
Yeah.
But I would understand somebody saying, you know what, I'll bet on Jokic over anything the Knicks could do against those 3 teams. Like I understand that. I would understand you doing the same thing with the Lakers, doing the same thing with Golden State because of Steph and Jimmy. The Knicks, I think that they've very clearly created a very good 4th best regular season team, and the gap has is just so deep and distant from those other three that I don't know how to evaluate this season. Being a fourth best team in the NBA is usually something to hang your hat on, because you could talk yourself into, well, things break right, you get injuries. And it's like, no, I'm not expecting a competitive second round against the Celtics. That's just where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. And like, look, I mean, I feel like this is kind of how I've talked about the Knicks all year. Is I think they're a really good regular season team that has very little chance to like make a deep run in the playoffs, like a real genuine, they have a chance to win a title deep run in the playoffs, because their defense, like I just don't see how they're going to be able to stop anybody against like the really truly good teams.
But are the really truly good teams just those three? Like you would take Denver over them, like probably, right?
No, I think the Knicks are in that tier with like
Okay.
Denver, Golden State, the Lakers. Like they're somewhere in that tier to me. Honestly, they are probably the top of that tier. I kind of just said that just to like fuck with you a little bit,
and it worked. It worked.
But like they're in the same group to me, I guess I would say right now.
Yeah,
is where I'm at.
Just a very, very weird season, I'll say, because they haven't won. They're on pace for 55 wins, and they haven't won that many games in a season since 1997. And that's usually something you say, oh, they took a step forward, and it's a very minor baby step forward because you went all in the way you did. And now everything's on the table. Is the blueprint flawed? You have to look at the McCall and the Cat trades as too much too soon. Is it a Thibodeau conversation? Do you have to think about making a coaching change? Is it like, do you see if there's a way to get into the Giannis sweepstakes if they ever happen? So I'm just a very rough weekend. They lost by 100 points on Friday against Cleveland, and then lessened it to 50 against the Cavs against the Celtics on Sunday. So,
I mean, here's the crazy conversation that
What?
you're going to yell at me about.
Oh no.
Do you try to cash in on Cat's year in the off season and be like,
I'm so serious that everything's on the table. Like I've discovered, like, I love Cat. I was arguing that he should be second team all NBA or closer than Brunson. But
he should be like,
right.
He's going to make
second
the
regular
team all NBA,
season. Yeah. Like it's an understood thing, but if like, what's the cash in would be my counter.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. Maybe that's a conversation if they like completely and utterly flame out in some way, but they're not going to do that. Like, there's just no chance that they actually look at that.
Yeah.
I
think unfortunately, because I like him, and we went through 2 decades of nothing. Like, so I like Tibbs. I think it's going to end up falling on the head coach. Unfortunately, that's just like how this league works. Unfortunately, like we go to, let's change the head coach first before we go further up the ladder, and I think it's gonna go that way.
Yeah, but like it can't go further. Like Leon built this team to like a 55 win team, so like it can't.
I know.
Doesn't
but
stop.
Didn't you go all in to now be closer to the Celtics and the Cavs and the Thunder than 0-7 minus 141?
Yeah. You're not wrong, Andrew. It's just like, I don't know. This team needed some happiness in this Knicks season. By and large, has brought you happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to sit here and act like this season hasn't been a success. Like, it undeniably has been, even though like this is the worst weekend that you will have this year.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're catching me today. If they go 3-0, to that point,
they probably will. For what it's
they're
worth,
10-4 in their last 14 games. Those 4 losses are the Lakers, the Celtics twice, and the Cavs. And it was the same night the Lakers traded for Luka, so they totally didn't know that they were getting Luka after the game, right? That's why they played that way at Madison Square Garden. It's why I'm speaking to the weirdness of evaluating this season, Sam. That I don't know how to, like. I've absolutely been more happy than not happy this season. Yeah. Covering them as a content creator and just enjoying them as a basketball fan, especially after what the majority of this century has been. It's a very humbling and humiliating weekend when it's just non-competitive. We do these, I've mentioned them, these watch parties that we do in New York City at T Squared Social. By the way, the T Squared is Tiger and Timberlake. So shout out to both of them for the collaboration throughout the season. We did a watch party Friday night for the Cavs game. We did trivia at halftime. It ended the party because we never went back to the game. They were down by 35 points by the time the trivia was over. So it's the weirdest thing where you could point to like good wins against Memphis and 2 wins against Dallas. And, you know, the next watch party we're doing is against Golden State. Maybe they'll win that one. A good win against the Rockets where Brunson went off in the fourth quarter. And then there's the games against the other 3 teams that are just not competitive. I've never had this feeling where like we're number 4. They don't make that foam finger, you know? So I have to try to evaluate it in a way I've never done before, which is tough.
We're number 4.
We're number 4. That's what Knicks fans have to hold their hat on this year. Hang their hat on this year is that are there foam fingers for we're number 4?
All right, Bryce, get us out of this death spiral. And
Hi, Bryce. Look forward to the first round.
I hope the Knicks are an answer for every question. So we are doing some offensive stats today. We're looking at percentage of 2-point attempts, 3-point attempts, mid-range, fast break, all of that. So that's what we will do today. Sam, you're going to start us off. I am looking for the top 4 teams in the NBA in percentage of field goal attempts from 2 points. Okay, so not makes, percentage of field goal attempts from inside the 3-point line, 2-point attempts.
So Denver is one of these.
Denver is one of these. Number 1 in the NBA in this stat.
Denver, I know, was 30th coming into that in terms of 3-point attempt rate. So it's basically like the inverse of 3-point attempt rate, right?
Essentially.
Am I thinking about this right?
Essentially, yes.
I think I'm thinking about this right. Houston, I think, is near the bottom of this.
Yep. Houston is 28. Now you got me talking inverse. They are 3rd in this stat. They are the 3rd most percent field goal attempts from 2-point.
I think Toronto is weirdly here, despite the fact that people really like the offensive scheme that Darko runs.
They are 2nd.
And then my last one would be probably Orlando.
Interesting guest with Orlando. Orlando is actually middle of the pack in the NBA. So GMAC, I don't think this will give it away. You still have a chance to steal the 4th team. Denver's at 64.9%, Toronto at 63.2%, Houston at 61.9%. Our 4th team is right there at 61.8%.
The Knicks.
The Knicks are the 4th team.
I actually would not have.
Yeah. One of my most frustrating criticisms of this team is that they don't take enough threes. They use their 5-out spacing to get to the rim.
Which,
I mean, it can be effective. That's the time to give it away.
It is part of the theory of spacing that often gets overlooked. That spacing does allow you to get to the rim better. All right. We are doing the other side of the coin now. Percentage of field goal attempts from the 3-point line. Top 4 teams in terms of field goal attempts. Whoa, almost messed that up. Field goal attempts from the 3-point line.
So it's the most 3-pointers, basically. The highest 3-point rate. So Boston.
Boston is number 1 in the NBA. Just for reference, they are at 53.4% of their attempts. Team number 2 is 47.1, which is a 6.3 difference.
So funny.
To get to 6.3 difference, we would go to team number, I don't know, somewhere in the high teens or something. So, yeah.
Golden State.
Golden State is 3rd on this list.
Chicago.
Chicago is 2nd on this list. I actually thought this was one that we might clear all 4.
I want to. Oh man, I'm between 2.
Who are you between?
Charlotte,
no.
Charlotte and Cleveland.
I was gonna say, don't say it because then Sam can.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I'm generous today. I showed up late to work, so I'm feeling generous today. I'll go Charlotte.
Charlotte is not. Charlotte is 10th, top 10.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 43. I mean, it's pretty close. So the difference between 4th and 10th is 45.5 versus 43.9. So we're not talking a huge gap here.
I will say Cleveland.
You should say Cleveland. So we are 4-4. We have cleared all 4 teams starting off here. Really nice job. This next one is going to be fun. We are doing percentage of points from the mid-range.
Percentage of points from the mid-range.
So we're essentially looking for the 4 teams that score the most percent of their points from the mid-range.
Okay.
It might actually be the percent of 2 points from the mid. I don't think that's going to change the equation a whole lot, but.
And does this include like non-paint restricted area?
All it says is mid-range.
Okay. So in that vein, I guess my first one will be Sacramento.
Sacramento is number 1 in this stat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obvious reasons.
Very
I think
obvious.
I'll say Phoenix at 2.
Phoenix is not at 2. They are at 3, just a little bit behind number 2. But yes, also a very good guess. You sound like me trying to draft the All-Stars.
That was a fun draft. Congrats to Sam. No, to Bryce, by the way. To Bryce won. Bryce won that draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised how well I did, but shout out to Knicks Nation.
I think randomly, like Indiana takes a ton of these.
This was the one that would have shocked me outside of TJ McConnell, but they are 4th. Now the difference between the Suns at 3 and the Pacers at 4 is 1.6 points per game. And then like 7.9, 7.9, 7.5, like a whole bunch of 7s until you get.
So there's another like high volume mid-range team.
So 11.1, 10.3, 9.9 are 1, 2, 3, and then 8.3 is 4th. So
OKC?
OKC is one of the ones right after this. They are 6th at 7.9.
Oh.
Okay.
So we're missing number 2?
We are missing number 2.
Number 2. Can you clear the board for us, Andrew?
I don't think I can, because all the mid-range kings have been said. Although I guess Chris Paul hasn't been said yet, but I don't know how much he's factoring into their shot profile in San Antonio. Man, I don't want to belabor this. I'll say, yeah, I got nothing. I'll say Miami.
San Antonio is actually 10th GMAC. Miami's actually one of the lower teams.
Okay.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay. That makes some sense.
Giannis is taking a lot
Giannis.
of those. Middleton takes mid-range shots. Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Our score is 7-4. Sam is up, but GMAC gets his second question now. I am looking for percentage of points that come from the fast break. So not necessarily pace teams, right? It's teams that actually score the basketball in the fast break. What highest percentage of their overall point totals?
Oh, so this is just, it doesn't matter if you're not a high frequency
Does not
fast transition team.
No,
it's it's
all
efficiency on your transition.
I mean, obviously there's a little bit of volume that goes into this, but it's a percentage of your overall points.
Okay. Are the Knicks on here?
The Knicks are not on here.
Okay. They were a good fast transition team for a while, and then
They are actually like 19th. So there's not crazy gap in this, to be honest with you.
Interesting. They were like in very high, very, very orange on cleaning the glass and in their accuracy, in their efficiency for the majority of the year. I guess I haven't looked in a while, but
maybe the pace may just be low enough that all right.
So Bryce, To confirm this, say what you're looking for one more time.
Percentage of a team's points that come from fast break. So not points per game, the percentage of a team's points that come from fast break.
My first guess is Memphis.
Memphis also not on this list.
Oh, wow.
Memphis is 15th. So top 4 are the Denver Nuggets.
Denver was going to be my second guess after the Knicks. Okay.
The Detroit Pistons. The Houston Rockets. And Toronto Raptors.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten any of those within my 4 guesses.
Denver, I would have, but the other ones, I got nothing. Wait, you said Memphis on there, right?
I did not. He said Memphis.
I said
Okay.
Memphis.
Yeah. Now, again, it's like the percentage, with the being percentage, it's not a crazy variety. But all right, we are back to Sam, and we are looking for percentage of points that come from the free throw line. Percentage of points that come from the free throw line.
Okay. So I'm going to guess that the Lakers are at 1 here.
The Lakers are not at 1, but the Lakers are on this list. They are 3rd. I think there are 2 very obvious teams on this list, and then 2 teams that I'll be fascinated if you guys get.
2 very obvious teams.
I shouldn't say. I think 2 teams that very obviously make sense once you say them. The other 2 teams are a little bit more interesting to dissect. The Lakers were one of those teams that I think a lot of people probably would have guessed.
I'm trying to decide if I think Joel has played enough to like bump that Sixers number up. Yeah, I mean, my mind's fixated on Philly. I'll just say Philly is one of those teams.
Philly is the other one that I was, felt like, I'm not saying I would have got it. I'm just saying that they make sense once you hear it.
The reason that Philly tracked for me was because like Daryl tries to build his teams based off of like getting to the line as much as anything. So like that was kind of my theory. Oh man.
Yeah. The rest of this is tough. Straight up.
I will say, I'm trying to think like weird, like Orlando. I'll say Orlando is like a team.
Orlando is number 1.
Okay. That's a wild guess on my part. I was trying to think of like teams that drive a lot as much as anything.
Yeah. And they don't score a lot. So if they're getting points from the free throw line, they're percentage.
And like maybe like Memphis again, just like high pace, get to the lane a lot, like that kind of vibe.
15th. Again, not crazy variance in these numbers, so they're not far off. So we went 1. Orlando was 1st. Philly is 2nd. The Lakers are 3rd. GMAC, there are actually 2 teams tied at 4th. So you have 2 teams here that you could potentially say.
So the teams I wrote down were LA, Philly, and Atlanta. And I there's no chance I was going to get Orlando. So I will guess Atlanta.
It's a great poll. They are tied with the Utah Jazz.
Oh.
Or
I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even.
Same. All right. GMAC. We are looking for percentage of points off turnovers. So percentage of a team's points that comes off created turnovers. OKC, very good guess.
Yep.
Orlando,
another very good guess. They're actually 3rd, just for reference.
Trying to think good defense teams, like the best.
That's a really good strategy.
Where's the standings? No way. No, not Boston. I mean, maybe Boston, Cleveland after this weekend. I'll say the Clippers.
Great guess, GMAC.
Okay. Here's my comeback.
All right. This next one is tough. Those are the 3 I thought you guys might get. Houston is ninth.
Sounds like a no. Yeah.
No,
okay.
no. The fourth team is actually a team we've talked about being disruptive before, but is not an overall good defensive team.
My guess is just like Dyson Daniels, just like creating these opportunities for Atlanta.
Atlanta is actually 10th. The answer is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Huh.
Yeah, that's completely bizarre to me.
Never would have gotten that.
Well, if you remember, I'm pretty sure we did deflections and stuff recently, and they were actually, and I know this is actually forcing turnovers, but okay. The final two are looking at a team's assisted and unassisted numbers. So, Sam, I am looking for the top 4 teams in assist percentage, field goal percentage of their field goals made that are assisted. Okay. Everybody understand? So this one will be field goal made percentage that are assisted, and then we'll do unassisted next. So this is assisted. You're looking for the best assist percentage teams field goal makes.
So the Warriors are always very high in this.
The
Warriors are
number 1
there.
Yep, number 1. Denver not on this list. Oh, that's such a bad beat. Denver is 5th.
Huh.
Ooh.
Okay. So you're open here, Andrew. You got to sweep it.
So you
can get one here and get closer.
For our audio listeners, real quick, let me set the stage. 11-8 Sam. GMAC can still 1, and then we will have our final question. So GMAC has a chance here.
So here's where I'm hung up, because the 4 teams I wrote down were Golden State, Denver, and then 2 other teams. I wrote down San Antonio and Atlanta. And now I'm doubting everything in life, which I have.
Why? I said Denver was 5th.
Right, but Denver's not the top 2. So I'm now like, I figured Denver was number 2. So now I'm like, I know. Got it. I know nothing is basically where I'm at.
Again, these are tough. Like, you guys have done an awesome job because they're a little obscure, but also because the percentages are so close. Like, they're 0.4% lower than 4th. They are 1.6% lower than 2nd. Like, go ahead.
I'll say Atlanta.
It doesn't matter which one you say because you got both 2 and 3.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, good for you, Andrew.
So,
yeah, my guess would have been San Antonio for what it's worth, Andrew.
Okay.
So yeah,
San Antonio 2nd, Atlanta 3rd, and guess who shows up again in this activity? The Toronto Raptors.
No, future 10 seed.
Chicago Bulls 6th. Okay, now we're flipping the script. GMAC, you need at least 2 to tie the game. We are looking at field goals made percent that are unassisted.
So I'm thinking heavy isolation teams. So I got to go to Dallas first.
Dallas is part of this list.
So what's tough is with the unassisted, I'm thinking Philly, but I'm also thinking, did the guys that basically was Embiid healthy enough to contribute to this number,
Mm-hmm.
I will say Philly.
Philly is 2nd on this list.
Tied.
We are tied. I will tell you this, GMAC, not to put pressure on you. My guess is Sam is going to steal one of these teams. So I think you need to get at least one more. If you don't get the top team, I think Sam is going to get the top team. I'll just say that. So we got to get that team or the other team.
Pressure's on.
I hate to tell you this, but I have guesses. I have 2 here that I feel pretty good about.
So even if I need to get one here.
I gotta get one here.
You might need to rip them.
I might. So,
but you can only steal
2 for the win. 2 for the win. But I need to for the win, or it's either win or a tie.
Yeah.
Or a loss.
You got a free throw to put yourself up 3, and then the best Sam can do is tie it with his own 3, and then we're headed to OT. But I think if you miss this free throw, he's knocking down the 3 for the win. He's got the play drawn up. Winner with.
I'm staring at the NBA standings and nothing is standing out.
For what it's worth,
pun intended. Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Oh,
Oh no, it's like that close, isn't it?
they are 6th.
Oh god.
They are
That's
6th.
gross.
Because you actually have 5 teams because 4th place is a tie. 0.4% below that tie, GMAC.
Great.
It doesn't
Sam?
matter. I think the number one team here, I think, is Houston.
Houston is number 1.
Um,
Yep,
good
that
job.
is correct.
Yeah.
Can
they
I
just
ask?
did
Can
a
I
lot of
ask?
that.
Where was OKC?
They would have got you the point you needed. I thought that's where you were gonna go. I thought it was.
I again, I thought there would be enough ball movement there with the Hartenstein edition that they'd be like close, but not in the top 4. And they weren't. They were 5. I guess
No.
technically tied for 4.
Tied for 4th with the Mavs.
And what
Rockets
was the
are-
number? What's the difference
Oh.
between 4, 5, and 6?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the crazy number. The Rockets are 45.3. The Sixers are 41.4. You almost go 4%.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and then it was 0.4% between Dallas and OKC tied for 4th with the Bucks at 6. Sam, were those your 2 names, Rockets and OKC, or do you have another team?
I knew Houston was one.
Yeah,
Like,
you
for
said you
sure.
had 2 teams. though.
I was down to either Portland or OKC.
Swept it. Portland was number 3.
Well done, Sam.
Yeah. I've done a lot of Portland videos. This
Oh
year.
yes, I've edited
Like,
a lot of
I'm-
Portland videos this year.
Yeah,
I
I
get
am
it.
very on top of the Portland Trailblazers offensive ecosystem at this point because of having like dug into that tape a decent amount. Oh, Andrew, I needed you to get a win this weekend. I'm sorry that I had to.
Can I save it? Can I save the weekend for me needing to get a win? You know who homered in
Yeah.
his first spring training at bat as a New York Met yesterday?
Oh, I saw it.
It's
It was beautiful.
February.
That would be Juan Soto. That's
It's
right.
February. Why are
Yeah,
we
but
playing
I need to
why are we
think.
playing
I need to
baseball?
think. I need to think warm thoughts right now because the Knicks season's over, and I went to Florida for a week and came back to 25-degree weather. So I'm mentally in a different headspace right now, Bryce.
Yeah.
And I lost at
What-
trivia. So
Juan Soto hit like a 450-foot bomb, and then Bubba Chandler for the Pirates was already just out here throwing like 99 in spring training games. I was like,
Yep.
what are we doing? Like, let's maybe slow it down, Bubba. Let's
baseball is
keep
back,
that
baby.
arm
Sorry,
on
Bryce.
ice, please, sir.
Yeah. Him and Skeens is a good one too. I'll say that.
Well, they're loaded. They have Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Bubba Chandler when he comes up. Like, it's going to be hysterical. Like, they're pitching, and they have absolutely nobody on planet Earth who can hit the ball consistently.
Can I point out one of my favorite developments that happens on Game Theory? Whenever Sam and I go off on a tangent on something Bryce has no interest in, he just puts his head
Immediate phone.
down. Just
Immediate phone.
just puts his head down and go.
I don't put my head down. I get on my phone. And
I
check
know, but that's what I'm
Twitter.
saying. The shot ends up being you and I, Sam and I talking, and then it's just Bryce.
I'm trying to promote our
Yeah.
new sponsor, right? So
I dig it. Shout out Mint Mobile. There you go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Andrew, tell the people where they can find Knicks Film School and all of the fun things that you're doing over there while sitting in sadness and wallowing this weekend.
Yes, licking our wounds after a very frustrating weekend. But you can find Knicks Film School on YouTube. We're still on the countdown to 20,000 subs. I think the post game show's over now. It started an hour and a half before Game Theory started and was still going when I came over here to do trivia. But you can check out all of our coverage of the Knicks, whether it be pre-game, where I do the pre-game pod. During the game, we do watch-alongs, and then after the game, we do post-games. And on off days, we do pods. So full wall-to-wall coverage of the New York Knicks. You can find me on all social platforms at AndrewJClaudio_.
Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work.
looks like it stopped 17 minutes ago. GMAC, they finally went offline.
Thank God.
Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Motor City Hoops on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. Guys, I will quick promotion here. I did a Cade Cunningham ball screen breakdown. I think just if you're a fan of basketball, NBA basketball in general, that might be something that would interest you, even if you're not a Pistons specific fan. Cade's gotten really good in ball screens and kind of tried to highlight the nuance of why and how and all of that. And if your favorite team plays the Pistons, like if you're a Hawks fan, I will have notes on the Hawks after today's game. The Pistons Pulse podcast, otherwise the Game Theory podcast right here with the Sam Vecenie and GMAC, my guy.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. You will have top 100 rankings from me for the 2025 NBA draft this week. So go there, subscribe to that. You will get that update. I can promise you I'm literally writing this thing after we get done here now. I don't know who I'm going to write about yet, but there are plenty of interesting players. It's just whether or not I convince myself to write about some of the questionable stay or go guys like, hey, Josh Dix is really fun. Or do I write about the guys that people care about? Like, hey, Cooper Flagg's really good. Should I just continue to write about him? We'll see. Derek Queen will definitely be getting a write-up as well. So that's what you will have in store for me over at The Athletic. We will be back here on this channel later this week. I will have some sort of breakdown on Tamani Kamara. I will probably do video on a draft prospect. I kind of want to do Dylan Harper because I haven't done like a deep dive on Dylan recently, I feel like, and I feel like that would be valuable for people. I kind of want to do Derek Queen at some point too, and just like talk through the defensive issues I have. But we'll save that maybe for a later date. Okay. That's all we've got. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.